Hello learners, in this unit on sculpture, the discussion in this video will be basically focused on understanding the rich sculptural heritage of India, its relevance with reference to tourism industry, the sense of continuity as far as Indian sculpture are concerned will be also discussed. Indians have made a contribution to the world art in their sculpture which can only be paralleled by the Greeks. Throughout the centuries, sculpture in India has been a dominant expression of people and their land. The sculptural artists in India had attained a great degree of excellence at a very early period, and the specimens provided by them are world renowned and objects of international recognition today. Though we have lots of evidences of written records of ancient India, but the record of the life of people and their environment can be best understood from the ancient sculpture and painting of India. We have the sculptures of Bharut and Sanchi which illustrate vividly the everyday existence of ordinary people. Furthermore, these are priceless artistic pieces that attract art lovers from all over the globe. That is why it is important for all students of tourism to have knowledge of the sculptural legacies of our country. It is true that the creation and interpretation of a work of art depends primarily on nations' beliefs and culture. However, it is the craftsmanship of the people who are involved that plays a very crucial role. Now let us understand the types and form of sculpture. Sculpture is the action or art of creating three-dimensional work of art out of a hard metal by carving, modeling, casting, etc. There is a widespread belief that Indian sculpture is very much related with architecture. Though it is true to an extent, but we use variety of metal, ivory and wood along with stone for sculpture. We find lot of evidences of primitive types to folk culture and also in urban areas the growth of this tradition. We have enough evidences to indicate that sculpture was found in various metals. For example, the whole range of South Indian bronze is non-architectural in nature. The art of sculpture has remained deeply rooted in the tradition of Indian art and architecture and had an uninterrupted evolution. From the time of Harappan civilization to the end of Mughal rule, we have masterpieces of Indian sculpture. And as a student of tourism, it is imperative for us to get familiarized with all major sculptural forms that are important in highlighting the cultural heritage of India and are of immense interest to global visitors. So, when we focus on the time period and the main streams, we can divide them into four major streams. The first one is the early period, then we have the Gupta period, medieval period and the South Indian stream. All these sculptural forms are equally rich in their content and exhibit the cultural diversity of India. We shall try to understand how they differ from each other and still hold a element of continuity. Learners, let us first start with the Harappan period. The early period began with the Harappan culture, which is said to have lasted until the advent of Gupta kings. The early sculpture that comes from this culture basically focus on human and animal figures. The figures excavated in this region show a high degree of finish and excellence and disclose an advanced stage of development of the art. We have wide variety of impressive terracotta figures of animals such as dog, buffalo, monkey, rhinoceros, crocodile, etc. that show that artists had a close study of their habits as well as had the ability to represent them with realistic effect. The figures of the animal carved on the seal in these indicate a high degree of technical and artistic ability of the craftsman. Most Indian sculpture is structured to comprehend the world of aquatic, plant, animal and human life. Each of these aspects focus on decorative dimensions, yet at the deeper level they represent the various aspects of human psychology. Therefore, we have figures in bronze which have been also discovered from this time. A dancing girl is considered to be a work of great beauty. Then we have the figure of a wild buffalo with head lifted up and other such specimens of artistic modeling. The Harappan culture and the Mauryan period represents a change and a continuity both in terms of the sculptural traditions of India. After studying about the Harappan sculpture, let us now focus on the Mauryan period. The Mauryan period constitutes a notable change and development in the sculptural art of India. King Ashoka was an adherent Buddhist and he made the fine arts one of the instruments in the propagation of the faith. He got monolithic pillars erected at various places and inscribed them on his edifices, on edicts and on public places so that people can actually appreciate the art and understand the basic principles. The capital of each pillar comprised of three principal members, namely the inverted lotus bell, abacus and crowning sculpture in the round. The abacus was decorated with figures and the sculpture in the round represented a sacred symbol such as wheel or a commonly symbolic animal or a group of four animals, example the elephant, the horse, the lion and the bull. These elements were very well executed and were really appreciated by the local people. The accuracy which characterized the workmanship of Mauryan age is of superb excellence. Another feature of the pillar is the lustrous polish on the surface, which sometimes led to a feeling as if the columns were metallic in nature. In these pillars, the art of polishing hard stone was carried out to perfection. So, learners, in this period we find lot of railings and gateways and some of them are being preserved in various museums across the country. The sculptured panels on the gates and railings present a vast panorama of life. Among the historical scenes, the most interesting are the royal processions of Ajatashatru and Prasannajit and their visit to Lord Buddha. Another invaluable sculpture is a representation of the famous Jitwana monastery at Shravasti with its mango tree and the rich banker Anand Pindike employing gold to cover the ground of large figures. There are more than 30 statues of Yaksha and Yakshagani, Devatas and Rajas. The representation of animals and trees are also very numerous. The other objects are boats, horses, chariots, bullock carts. Besides this, we have different kinds of musical instruments, a great variety of flags, standards and other symbols of royalty. An important landmark in the history of Indian art is the sculptural railing around the temple at Bodh Gaya. The inner side of the railing is ornamented with long lines of animals, elephants, deers, bulls, winged horses, makranas and scenes from everyday life, and the outer face are carved with circular lotus flowers on both sides, some of them containing figures of animals. The sculptures are well designed and carefully finished. The most magnificent monument of the Buddhist period is the great stupa at Sanchi. Its importance rests chiefly on the four gateways which are well designed and carved, illustrating the Jataka stories and various episodes in the life of Buddha, which gives us a lot of details about the social life of that period. There were 30 columns and out of these 10 are in more or less perfect state of preservation. 2 with lion capital are in other parts of the Champaran district of Bihar. However, the masterpiece of Mauryan sculpture is the Sarnath column. It once stood in Deer Park in Sarnath. The Chinese pilgrim Huang Stang, who visited the site in the 7th century, described this as a stone pillar with 70 feet high, and the stone was sparkling like light. So, we find that a lot of appreciation from visitors during this time period about Indian sculpture. So, we have sculpture related to female figures, that is the Yaksha and the Yakshaganis, and they also symbolize various elements such as water and earth. We find sculptures where they stand against trees, embrace them. Articulation and interpretation of plant as well as human life is well depicted in these sculptures. So, learners, after studying about the sculptural developments in the area of Harappan civilization as well as the modern civilization, now let us move to the Shung dynasty. The Shunga dynasty replaced the Mauryans in 185 BC. During the Shunga rule, there was a marked development in Indian form of sculpture and ornamentation. The sculpture of the Shung period depicted life in its true form and reality. This is specially seen in the railing which stood round the stupa at Bharut in central India. Today the stupa is in ruins and the picture of Indian life and thought can be deciphered from that. We have men, animal, gods and goddesses which are portrayed with great vigor and dramatic intensity. The human figures are elegantly carved and they show various different poses. The northern gateway of the stupa is the best specimen of the artwork. Bharut sculpture is one of the important sculptural traditions of Shung period that decorates and focus on the new style of sculpture which developed during this time period. Though largely this structure has been destroyed, but the existing remains of the railing and the entrance gateways are now kept in the Indian Museum at Calcutta. The Shunga art of Mathura best expressed its sculptures. It belongs to pure tradition of Bharut and Sanchi, and by that time the Shung and the Sakas, Mathura became a famous art center. During this age, the so-called god-made Vodra Stupa of Jain was standing in its full glory on the present Kankali tills. So, we have figures of bodhisattvas, we have stone railings, we have images of lion and few other images which we are able to get as part of the various excavations as well as mapping of the remains of the sculptural tradition. They portray famous Jataka tales. Some of the important features of Shunga art of Mathura is that the sculpture was not in very bold form. The male and the female figures are adorned with large number of ornaments. Drapery is somewhat heavy and it's not light, as the case with the sculpture of later periods. We have a lot of abstract feelings like peace, serenity, temptation and surprise were focused on. Female figures were decorated with a lot of garlands, beads and costly clothes. The males figures basically focused on fluffy turbans which are decorated, and in certain cases absence of figure of Gautam Buddha is most noteworthy. Here he is represented by different symbols such as stupa or a three-pronged symbol or a diamond throne or a turban, begging bowl, sacred tea, a tree, wheel of law, etc. The sculpture of the Shunga period hailing from Mathura indicate that along with others, images of Vaishnava and Shiva sects were also becoming little vague at that time. However, there is a lot of influence of floral scroll patterns as far as the dresses are concerned. Shung art reflects more of mind, culture, tradition and ideology of that time period. During Shung period, stone replaced wood in the railings and the gateways of Buddhist stupas. Bharuch stupa is filled with sculptures apart from floral designs, animals, figures, yakshan, human figures. The period witnessed the increasing use of symbols and human figures in architecture, and we have an example of rock cut temple as far as the sculpture is concerned. After this, let us move to the next part of the sculptural tradition that flourished as a form of Gandhara school. Under the patronage of Kushan kings, a new school of art known as Gandhara school came into existence in northwestern India. The Gandhara artists adopted the Greek custom of representing God in sculpture, and Buddha was also represented. The appearance of the image of Buddha was most important, and the image was an object of worship. The images of Buddha and Bodhisattva are carved out in a realistic manner with great attention to accuracy, physical details, delineation of muscles and addition of moustache, etc. The representation of thick clothing with large and bold lines also formed a distinctive characteristic of the art. The Gandhara art reached its peak under the rule Kanishka, but this school gave a listless gesture to Buddha figure and focused on the spiritual energy of the Buddhist thought. So, we find that on the one hand, at this point of time, Mathura was center for the indigenous art. The Mathura sculpture was distinguished by the use of spotted red stone, and we have discussed that one of the most specimens of Mathura art are those of Yaksha and Yakshagani. The figures of these periods exhibits artistic skill in designing and carving out executive figures full of charm and expression. We also have the royal statues of Kushan kings which are found, and the headless figure of Kanishka of this period is also found in one of the museums. Two schools flourished at this point of time as far as the representation of Indian culture is concerned. The focus was again on natural elements, and we find lot of sculpture related to the images of the river goddess, principally Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. These were the three important rivers of the Indo-Gangetic plain, and in mythological terms they focused on eternal existence. So, we find in the sculptural tradition figures of Ganga and Yamuna standing on their respective vehicles, guarding the centuries and preparing the devotees for the inner journey. Saraswati was also depicted as a goddess of speech and learning and that of music. In terms of the influence of Hinduism, the concept of Lord Vishnu and Shiva remained fundamental. The focus was on universe and also on the good karmas. Many sculptures depict the episodes of related to Amrit Manthan, a Hindu mythological event symbolizing the importance of good and evil. After this, let us move to another period, that is the Gupta period. The Gupta dynasty in the 4th century led to the growth of a new phase of sculpture tradition. Buddhism was still influential and inspired images. We had outstanding work of art as well as powerful expression of faith. But since Hindu places of worship were increasing, the art was patronized, and the Mathura school now focused on working on images of Hindu deities. The forms were different, but a high standard of sculpture was maintained. The Gupta sculpture is based both in Buddhist and Hindu images. Preaching Buddha at Sarnath is a peak of perfection, where he is represented sitting in a yogic posture with his hands on the wheel turning the preachings. The elegant image of Vishnu also had the perfection of form, and the techniques of carving stone was of highest level. In this time period, we have lot of use of red sandstone for this art. The images used were such that heavy ornaments were used both for the male and the female. Long earrings and necklaces were an important part of the sculpture tradition. In Gupta age, we also find the cave temples of Udaygiri Hill, which bears an inscription of 401 AD, and we have various sculptures representing the incarnation of Vishnu as Varaha, and the style reached its culmination in a temple of early 6th century at Deoghar in the Jhansi district of Madhya Pradesh. It has sculptures which are of exceptionally good quality, full of grace and easy linear movement. Panels of this temple show the Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana, as well as Nanda and Yashodhara with Balram and Lord Krishna. During the Gupta period, terracotta objects and figures unmatched in their size and technique have been found. A large number of ornamental terracotta as well as numerous Buddhist figures are found at the stupa of Devi Mori in Gujarat. We have symbol of Shiva and Shakti, which are found in this part of the country. Along with this, we have sites in neighborhood of Bikaner in Rajasthan, which have produced a number of interesting terracotta figures. Many of these figures are still available in the Bikaner Museum. Excavations reveal collection of terracotta figures which were related to temples, and considerable number of styles emerged. One such style was also known as the Kashmir style with its own distinctive features. So, in this video we are trying to understand that the sculptural tradition slowly moved from stone to other different metals also. In the term of Guptas, we find number of rock carvings in central and eastern India and considerable number of individual images. Some of these images were installed in shrines. As a result of it, we have a rich culture, and bronze images were also made, but very few of them have been survived at this point of time. So, learners, the sculpture of Gupta period show a new dynamism, a new sense of quality. They expressed both devotion and a sense of dramatic changes in the society. These qualities were visible in small ceramic pieces of sculpture as well as in the large scale sculpture. Now, the artist used the measurement system, which was well established, on the basis of which the entire system evolved. The work was outstanding because it was able to express the feeling and expression. It is more apparent as far as the Hindu pieces are concerned, contrast to the dignity of Buddhist images. So, we find that during this Gupta period, it is one of the best created sculpture tradition. In this video, we have learned that the sculptural art is probably one of the oldest art forms to exist. It is widely practiced since the ancient times of the Harappan culture, and in Indian subcontinent, sculpture remained a significant part of documenting the life. So, we find lot of figures related to humans and animals as well as the stories of the religion in different region. Today, number of Indian museums exhibit sculptures excavated and dating to modern empire, Kushan Empire and Gupta Empire. In the other video, we will discuss about the sculpture traditions of southern India, the Pala Buddhist art, as well as the changes in the sculpture of the Mughal traditions. So, there is a lot of research that is going on, and we are able to understand the cultural implications, preserve most of these cultural objects in our museums so that they become a center of attraction for the tourists. This is one of the most important art which we have retained, and we are trying to revive it in the present times. Thank you.